How humans kept food from killing them. For 99% of human history, there was no such thing as a refrigerator, and yet humans ate meat that was weeks old, fish caught months earlier, and milk that had been sitting out for days. They didn't get sick, they got smart. The enemy was never just time, it was bacteria, moisture, oxygen, and warmth. 4 forces that turn food into poison. Every preservation method in history was really just a war against one or more of these. The oldest weapon in that war was salt. Drop meat in enough of it, and water gets pulled out of the cells, including the cells of any bacteria trying to grow there. No water, no bacteria, no spoilage. Roman soldiers marched across Europe on salted meat and a hard, salty cheese ration. The word salary comes from the Latin for salt, because soldiers were sometimes literally paid in it. But salt was expensive. In medieval Europe, salt taxes started wars. The French Revolution had a salt tax problem at its core. Whoever controlled salt controlled whether a population could eat through winter. Smoke was the second weapon. Hang meat over a smoldering fire, and the smoke coats it in compounds that are mildly antibacterial, while the heat slowly dries it out. Smokehouses appear in nearly every culture on Earth, independently invented. In Scandinavia, this became an art form. Fish smoked for weeks over specific woods, producing flavors so distinct that entire regional identities formed around them. A smokehouse wasn't a kitchen tool, it was infrastructure. Then there was the strangest trick of all, rot on purpose. Fermentation lets good bacteria, the kind that produce acid, outcompete the bacteria that would actually hurt you. It's controlled spoilage that prevents real spoilage. Sauerkraut, kimchi, yogurt, cheese, soy sauce, sourdough, pickles, salami, all of them exist because someone, somewhere, learned to harness rot instead of fearing it. Entire cuisines are built on the corpse of bacteria that almost killed us. Cold, when you could get it, was the ultimate preservative. But for most of history, cold was a luxury reserved for the rich. Persian engineers built yakchal, massive clay structures that made ice in the desert, using nothing but wind and night air, as early as 400 BC. By the 1800s, icemen cut frozen lake water into massive blocks and shipped it by boat to warmer climates around the world. American ice was sold in Caribbean ports and even shipped to India, packed in sawdust to survive the months-long voyage. Families who could afford it had an icebox, a wooden cabinet with a block of ice in the top compartment, dripping slowly into a pan below that had to be emptied daily. It was the literal predecessor of the word we still use, the fridge. For everyone else, the answer was underground. Root cellars used the simplest trick available. The earth itself stays at a near constant cool temperature year-round, no matter what's happening in the sky above it. Drying was the oldest trick of all, older than fire itself in some accounts. Simply let the sun and wind pull the water out. No water, no bacteria. Civilizations from the Andes to the Sahara built their survival around it. The Incas turned this into a technological marvel called charqui, freeze-dried potatoes and meat, made by exploiting the freezing nights and scorching days of high-altitude Peru. The word survives today, slightly mangled, as jerky. And then, in 1810, everything changed. Not because of a new preservation method, but because of a tin can. A French inventor figured out that sealing food in an airtight container and heating it could keep it edible for years. Napoleon's army needed food that could survive long marches without spoiling, and canning won a literal cash prize for solving it. The irony, nobody understood why canning worked for another 50 years, not until Louis Pasteur explained bacteria. So for half a century, humanity had a preservation method that worked perfectly, without anyone knowing why. They were killing bacteria they didn't yet believe existed.
Refrigeration, as we know it, didn't arrive in most homes until the 1920s and 30s, which means for almost the entirety of human history, every single meal was a small act of applied chemistry, learned through generations of trial, error, and occasionally funerals. We didn't just lose a set of techniques when the fridge arrived. We lost a way of understanding food as something alive, fragile, and dangerous unless you knew exactly what to do with it. The refrigerator didn't just preserve food, it preserved our ignorance about it.